morning, Gambia. Good morning, our wonderful viewers. Welcome to another edition of our monthly theme. Today, our topic of discussion is the International Day for Elimination of Violence Against Women. With me in the studio is Caroline. Caroline from Netherlands. Caroline, welcome.
Thank you very much for having me here.
Thank you very much. Okay, today we're talking about a very important topic. Today is 25th November, which is widely recognized by the UN as the International Day for Elimination of Violence Against Women. Caroline, what is your take when we talk about violence against women? What do you consider violence against women?
There's many forms of violence against women. Of course, you have like physical violence, and then I'm talking about beating, punching, kicking, throwing things, beating with a stick. More atrocious things. And we have sexual violence against women, which goes from groping till full hardcore rape, of course. There is things like psychological violence against women. A lot of men tend to put their women inside the house and she doesn't have a social life anymore, which is also a form of violence. So it's really a very fast thing that is happening everywhere in the world. And the most sad thing is that worldwide more than 50% of the women have experienced at least one time in their lives one form or another of violence against them. And the worst is that it's very much accepted, very much institutionalized by patriarchal society, and we do too little about it, because if you get a punch from somebody on the street, police will interfere. But if I'm your wife and you punch me at home, I have nowhere to go.
Yes.
You do the same criminal act, and yet I don't get any justice. And this is the point, that most of the violence against women is not what they make us believe, like don't walk alone in the dark in the night, because that is so very dangerous. The most dangerous place for a woman this time, 2019, is her own home, where she should be the most safest. The perpetrators are nearly always males that are known, especially not only when it comes to physical abuse, but also when it comes to sexual abuse. It's usually the husband, the father, the uncle, the grandfather, the brother, eventually the son or a cousin, or a friend of a friend, and that is doing that inside your own home, where you should be safe. And for us women, there is no justice.
Okay, so do you consider, for instance, slapping your wife at home as a violation against women?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely, because I cannot slap you, huh?
Yeah, because that is socially acceptable. Looking at the African context, we've seen cases whereby people slap their wives, people beat their wives, but it's not considered. The cases are not even reported.
Yeah, that's the case. But
are they really violations?
Yeah, they're violations of human rights. If you want to follow the UN, then you will have to stop that kind of violence as well. What gives you the right to beat your wife? She is a human being with equal rights as you. So that doesn't make any sense. Your wife is not your kid, even that they cannot be beaten in most countries of the world nowadays. But you know, if you're among equals, you don't use violence of any means to get your way.
Okay. Well, there's another violations that is considered by the UN as a violations against women, which is, of course, having sexual advances to your wife. Even if he's not in the mood, it's still violation against women.
Your wife is not a prostitute.
But
your wife is not a prostitute. When you pay for sexual services, your wife is your equal. And you know, like if I marry you and I'm under the legal obligation to give you sex, then I better become a prostitute, because at least I'll be making money. Okay. You know, that doesn't make any sense. Sex is not something that is your right. Sex is something to enjoy both of us together.
Okay.
Not in this case, because you're married and I don't want to have sex, but you know, it's something that should be enjoyed by both partners, and that should be given voluntarily, because otherwise the pleasure is one-sided, and I'm sure sex is not meant to be like that.
Today is the 25th November, the International Day for Elimination of Violence Against Women. Caroline, what is your take when we say forced child. We've seen girls that are forced into marriage at a very tender age. Will you consider that as a violations against women as well?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Definitely. We don't force young boys into marriage with older women.
Yeah.
So, once there is equality, it still can be abusive, but at least we have equality. But once there is no more equality, it's automatically already wrong, because we are born equal, then we should be treated equal. And in most countries, the law make women and men equal, but the implementation of these laws is lacking everywhere. And that is most of all because most of the violence and most of the crimes against women find place inside their own homes and not on the street, because then the police would intervene. But because it's in their own home, it's like, basically I'm your slave when I marry you. You can have sex with me when you want, you can beat me up whenever you fancy take you, because I make the rice burn, or because I did nothing wrong. We feel like it. Where is the sense in this, that we still have slavery?
It doesn't make
and
any
this
sense.
time for half of the world population.
It doesn't make any. It really doesn't make any sense. Okay, these are all violations against women.
Yes, thank you.
Beating up your wives, having sexual advances with your wife, even whereas he's not in the mood, forcing your girl child into marriage. These are all violations against women. Of course, circumcision, that is the female genital mutilation. Are these all these ones are classified under violations against women? But the people are still practicing it. You look at the Gambia, for instance, it is still widely practiced. People still practice FGM, people still beat up their wives, people still have sexual advances, with their wives without their wives' intentions. What are some of the reasons that you think the reason why this thing still passes? Is that we didn't have those justice system enforced, or what are some of the reasons that
it's institutionalized patriarchalism. It's like institutionalized that the man is more than the woman.
Okay, that's power in blunts.
And it's happening not only in Africa, it's happening everywhere. Like I can give you an example that in Mexico City, 99% of women have experienced sexual abuse in the subway line so badly that now they are treating the symptoms, not the disease, which is, a wrong society, a wrong concept about women and too much power for men and not enough for women. So they have now separate carriages for women and separate carriages for men. Okay. But that is only treating the symptoms. So I just give this example, and therefore I tell you, in Europe there was this huge research that found out that more than 50% of European women have had either sexual abuse or physical abuse or whatever. So it's just happening everywhere. And here it's a little bit more in your face and it's a little bit stronger, and that is culturally determined. Okay. And to change that, you don't do that overnight, and it's not enough to only empower women, because men's mindset also has to change. And if you look in countries like Sweden, Denmark, they have male groups that are there to say, like, we should be nice to women and treat them as our equals, and we have to teach that to men. So these movements, they are starting now, and it's not government movements, it's movement from the bottom up. But yeah, a lot of things have to change, and the first thing is the mindset, and stop using religion as a means of keeping women down in the kitchen, because it's not what Mohammed talked about. Mohammed talked about equality.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes, that is very true. Religion cannot be used to justify violence against women, because religion, of course, promotes the dignity of women, promotes the respect for rights of women. Basically, today is the 25th November, the International Day for Eliminating Violence Against Women. With me in the studio is Caroline from the Netherlands. Caroline, we've talked about so many violations against women, from rape, of course, rape also is part of it. We've talked about early marriage or forced marriage, of course, beating up your wife or having sexual advances with your wife without their intentions, all are classified under violations against women. We've also talked about some of the reasons why these things still persist in our society due to the lack of laws that have been enforced in the society of course, and then of course stigma, and then the shame that it carries along. And these are all reasons that people does not seems to tackle these problems, because we've seen rape cases happening, and people tend to keep silent about it.
The women will zip it up, because the shame is on her. Well, the shame should be on the guy, and that needs a very big mentality shift.
Exactly.
If you blame the woman for getting raped, where does that make any sense? It's like you're standing on the road, I drive over you with my car, and I go like this, and then I say, it's your fault because you shouldn't be standing on the road.
Definitely.
And I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Now, like in London, the women's lib movement at one point put a big poster in the subway, and it started, I'm sorry I was wearing a short skirt, I'm sorry that I was wearing a tight t-shirt, I'm sorry that I was late out night alone, I'm sorry for walking in the street, and the list goes on. Like, we get accused of being the criminal, but actually the guy who rapes us is of course the criminal, and in the end it's just, I'm sorry I exist, and that is what a lot of women feel. I'm sorry to exist because I can never do it right, I'm always wrong. Like, okay, if you see in Europe in the high school, like I have a kid in Holland that she just finished high school, okay, if she takes her sexual freedom that exists in my country, she is a slut, which is also a form of violence, and we have also the verbal violence, of course. If she doesn't have sex, then she is a cock teaser. So in one way or another, we can never do it right as women. We always do it wrong, we always get the blame for crimes that are committed by men.
Exactly.
It doesn't make, that has to change. You cannot keep this up, and people have to see the sense of that, you know?
Exactly.
And it's happening here. Like the other day, I went to Senegambia, and I bought something in one of these small roadside shops. And the guy, he started touching me like that. I said, brother, can you like not touch me?
That's right.
And he said, the way you address, you're asking for it. Now, this is a total misconception. So I gave him back his cookies. I said, I buy the cookies from the neighbor. You cannot give me respect, I give it to myself.
That's right.
But it shouldn't be needed.
That's right.
I should get the respect that I deserve. For my age, for the fact that I'm a woman, for the fact that I'm, like you, I'm your equal, I'm a human being. I deserve respect.
That's right.
Not regarding my gender.
That's right. People are vulnerable. There are people that are vulnerable to violence. Sometimes that's why we call, we said, power imbalances. These are all factors that contribute to someone's vulnerability to violence. Now, what are some of the other factors that you think will make someone to be vulnerable to violence? It's not all women that their rights could be violated. There are other women, they know they are right, you cannot violate their rights.
Yeah, well, you know, like, it's not completely true what you say, because it can happen to every woman. It's not regarding your, the research that was done in Europe had a conclusion that violence against women in whatever form is not depending on your social hierarchy, it's not depending on your financial status, it's not depending on culture, it's not depending on color, it's not depending on anything, it's just the fact that you're a woman that makes you vulnerable. Okay, and some women, they are a little bit better in defending themselves, but the stigma is very big also in Europe. Like, it's especially that the power women, you know, like they have their own career, they make a lot of money, maybe they have their own company or whatever. They also experience abuse, either sexual or physical or whatever. And they even dare to talk less about it because nobody expects a strong woman to get beaten up by their men. So there the stigma is even better than for women that are naturally maybe shy and make themselves humble and small. And either way it doesn't work. If you're a strong woman, you get beaten because you're a strong woman, and if you're a humble woman, you get beaten because you're too humble. You know, like the perpetrator doesn't look at that, and like the example I gave from Mexico, 99% of the women there has experience. Why that 1% doesn't have is just a coincidence, I think. You know what I mean? So no, there is no exception to violence to women for any woman. And yes, of course, it is great to empower women. I'm all for. I think women should be empowered. I think women should learn from young what is good touching and what is bad touching. Women should be learned from young that this is my body and nobody touches unless I say yes to that touch. Nobody can touch me. I have my own rights. I have the right to get this body and my being respected. You have to teach girls from a very young age what is sex, to understand that they have to say no to it, that they cannot have sex with anyone, that it's their right to choose with whom they want to have sex, but you cannot have sex with anyone, because a lot of girls don't even know that it is wrong. Like, okay, I lived in Malaysia, which is also a Muslim country, and a lot of young girls there get raped because they don't even understand what sex is, because we don't give them sex education thinking that way we protect them. But
exactly.
How can you know that something is wrong if you don't even know what it is? So sex education is also for the protection of girls and women is very important. Then with the value in it and the self-respect in it, like you have the right to have sex with whom you want or with your husband, whatever is your cultural concept about that.
Yeah.
But you have the right to say no as well, because this is your body and this is about, especially in a poor country like Gambia, but also in Malaysia, it was very poor when I started living there. Very often if you're poor, the only thing that you possess is your body, and if even that is not yours anymore, then what is left?
You don't have nothing.
No, you have nothing, and you don't have respect also, so what is left on? You don't have a life anymore, you know? This is very sad.
Very true.
This is very, very sad.
Okay. All right, thank you very much, Caroline, for your time.
My pleasure.
Today is the 25th November. We were talking about the International Day for Violation Against Women. Societies must respect women. Societies must uphold to the principle of justice that guides the rights of women. This is all that we have for you in this edition of our monthly theme. I was your host, Mamadou Fati, and Caroline, until we come your way next month. Thank you very much.
This is Better Future Production. I see you have come to our website. Before you leave, please make sure that you go ahead and watch all our interesting content and press on that subscribe button, okay? Like us. Thank you.